In my art practice, I tend to be inspired by the natural world, especially the native plants from a place, because to me they just have so much meaning and they're so beautiful. The brief came from Karen Burton, who was the art consultant working on behalf of Health Infrastructure. She asked me if I would work with Jessica Birk, who was an up-and-coming Aboriginal artist.
Art making to Jess, I guess it was just part of her being. She just loved playing with all different mediums, and I guess the more tactile they were, the more she could discover from it the beauty of things within nature to actually gain that inspiration. And I know it was whenever she would come home back to Yaegl country, her tank would be refilled.
It was really important to find a way for my artwork and Jess's artwork to coexist without one dominating the other. Karen asked me if it would be okay to work with the theme of the Angophora tree, because there were some big Angophora trees on the site that had to be removed to build a new building. So it was about in remembrance of those trees. I thought about what Angophora trees mean to me personally and talked to Jess about her beliefs about the Angophora and her memories of the trees.
It's a symbolism within many trees, but especially the Angophora. Jess kind of got that sense of healing and that sense of resilience and regrowth as well.
They're just so original as a tree. You know, they're these beautiful big dancing ladies, and they've got, you know, cellulite and creases and bulbous protrusions and these big muscular arms reaching up into the sky. So there's so much there as a sculptor to draw from. The colours of the Angophora tree are really unique. You have these beautiful sort of leading rusty colours and terracottas, and then some really soft mauvey colours from the old bark from the last season. What we did when we designed the work was we took Jess's paintings and we filled them into one of my drawings of the Angophora trees. So you've got the outline of the tree and then some negative areas which are clear, so we can see right through to the sky or to the landscape. There's a balance between design and art and engineering, and you don't want any of those things to be too heavy-handed, and that's where working with a good designer comes in.
I see the role of being the designer as more like being the artwork producer. We work with the artists to understand their narrative and work within the constraints of the built requirements of the project. At the beginning of the project, we had a great conversation about the brief and what we were trying to meet in terms of the concept and the materiality of the project, and that really informed the way that the project was developed.
I brought the motif of the Angophora into the artwork in two ways. One of them was to create these illustrations of the silhouette of the tree, these big branches, you know, the big curves of the branches, and the muscular trunk. And the other one is to think about the shedding of the bark. So how would we translate that into a built form?
An example of this was that the screening layer was made out of engineered aluminium screens. We didn't want them to look like a powder coat or a flat finish. We really wanted them to have the beauty of nature in them, and we experimented with axolotl terracotta treatments. This allowed us to have a natural pigment, a natural colour and a matte effect while being on 5mm thick screens that met the engineering requirements.
And then on the inside, in the interlayer, the colours there are actually earth pigments that Jess dug from the national park nearby.
You get that sense of land within the artwork simply because the colours and the materials that she's used. And it's amazing how special ochre is to Aboriginal people.
It's as though we've created a lantern out of her paper, and to complement each other. I think that's what we've achieved, where we've got Jess's artwork in the interlayer in the glass, and then when you're inside, you see through her artwork, which is lit up by the natural light, and then you see the silhouettes of the design that I created on the facade. This sort of sense of the artwork working together and both enhancing the other.